Hi everybody, Valerie here. I wanted to make a video about how I am starting this new project that I'm doing. I have a family friend who breeds Australian Shepherds, and they're adorable, and she's given me a bag of the down. She's taken all the guard hairs out of it. She's saved this for like a couple years now, so I have quite a bit of it, and this is a sample, but it's super soft. It's the undercoat of the animal, and she wanted me to make a yarn out of it, which I was super excited about. I've done dog fur before, and I can't remember what breed the dog was, but I blended that with some other fibers and it turned out really nice. So I'm excited about this one. This one is it's got white, gray, and brown, which I think is typical for the breed. I don't know a whole lot about the dog, sorry, but she does. Anyways, this one has all three of those colors in it, and I'm choosing to blend the down with some wool, some silk, some yak, and some Angelina or Firestar sparkle fiber, just to kind of help it. Well, first off, I'm blending it because the length of the fiber is about an inch. It's not very long, and the way I spin, or what I'm used to spinning with, is quite a bit longer. So I'm choosing to blend it with a wool. And the wool I chose initially to blend with is called Cheviot. I might be saying that wrong, but it's considered a coarse or medium wool. It's not coarse in your hands, but it does feel very similar to the Aussie down. It's quite soft. It's just not the softest wool on the market. But again, I chose it because I wanted the actual Aussie down to be the star of the yarn, and I didn't want to differentiate too much from what that was. So this mimics not only the feel of the fur, excuse me, but it also is going to help extend the length of it. This is the length of the wool, if I just pull a little bit out. So this is going to help that dog down kind of be more consistent, easier for me to work with as I'm spinning it. So that's what I chose for that. And I'm also choosing to use, like I said, some yak and silk. This is already blended yak and silk. It's this beautiful gray color, which again is mimicking some of the gray that's in the Aussie down, and it's going to add a little bit of softness back into the yarn, because the down and the wool on their own, plenty soft to the hand. But once you introduce twist to the fibers, you lose some of that softness, and I wanted to bring some of it back. And the silk will also add strength to the finished yarn, because once silk is twisted, it's really, really difficult to break. And since I have such short fibers in the yarn, I wanted something in the yarn that would help it stay together for a longer period of time. So that's why I chose the yak silk. It's this beautiful silvery gray. And I'm hoping it will kind of bring all the things I'm hoping it'll do to the yarn. And last but not least, I'm adding a little bit of sparkle. I tend to be a little artsy-fartsy, and it's hard for me to spin things that don't have something fun incorporated. And so I chose this brown kind of, it's called Firestar. It's a synthetic fiber. It's super sparkly. I'm not using a ton in it. I'm just doing it to, again, help with that staple length, or the length of the drafting zone that I'll be working with, but also to add a little bit of visual interest to the yarn, because it's mostly going to be a mashup of white, gray, and brown. And so I wanted to incorporate something brown. This is what I had, and it will add a little bit of visual interest to the finished project. So I'm going to show you how to blend it. Please forgive me, I have allergies. It rained today, and every time the weather changes I get a little So, okay, first things first. These might look familiar if you have pets that you need to help comb their hair. These are basically giant dog brushes. They call them hand carders. They're great for processing wool. I'm going to be using these to not only process the Aussie down, but to blend the fibers together. And so I'll show you how I do it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of that white wool, the Cheviot, and I'm just going to put a very thin layer on the first card. Just enough to cover the teeth a little bit. I'm not wanting the Cheviot wool to be the star. I want the Aussie to be the star. I just need something there to help mix it together. So just a tiny bit of the Cheviot goes on. And then I'm going to grab this beautiful Aussie down. And again, the fibers are super short, so it's going to be a little difficult to get them even on the carder, but that's why we're going to blend together the other stuff too. So I'm going to put more of this on than I did the wool, because I'm going to have to put wool on top. And this is, I think they call it the sandwich method. But now I have the Aussie down on here, and it's quite a bit more than this like light layer of wool. To finish, I'm going to put one more layer of this wool. Very light layer. And now the Aussie down is sandwiched between the wool layers. This will just help get things going. So I take this other carder, and you can see I've used it recently. That's fine, that's not a problem. We're just going to comb it. And a process like this, because I'm adding so many layers and I'm dealing with so many different lengths of fiber, I will have to card this at least 4 or 5 times to get it to blended finished product that I want to spin with. So it's kind of together now. You can see there's no big chunks like there were the first time. I'm going to go ahead and do it a second go, or a second pass. And I'm just combing. It's not hard work. It's like combing your hair that's already combed. It's really easy. Okay, so now it's pretty much together. And I don't have the silk or the yak or the Firestar in it, but it's enough to help me get started. And you can see if I pull out a length now, if I just pull some, the length of the overall staple length now is somewhere between the wool on its own and the Aussie on its own. It's like in the middle. It's just longer and shorter at the same time. So I have this. What I'm going to do now is add silk and Firestar to it, same way I just did it, but to save some time, I already have one done. It comes off the carder looking like this. Looks like well, I don't know. It looks like this. And all the fibers are going this way. They're all parallel to each other, facing the same direction. What you want to do with something like this that has shorter fibers in it, I think I'm going to spin this in a woolen method. And I'm going to turn this into what they call a rolag and spin with the fibers all going different directions again, like it's not combed. And that just helps incorporate the shorter and longer mix up a little bit easier. It just makes it easier to spin an even yarn. So then what you do with this is you roll it up into what they call a rolag. I'm not going to do that. I already have one done. And this is the rolag. It's a giant tube of fiber. And this is off the carders. It fluffs up. There's a lot of air in this. And this is also blended with the silk and Firestar. So you can see up close that it doesn't really look like there's a ton of sparkle in it or anything crazy, but it does still look like the original Aussie down. It's just fluffier and easier to work with. So that's how you make a rolag and blend, or at least the way I do it works for me. Later I'm going to show you a video of how I choose to spin it and the different ways you can choose to spin it. But like I said, my plan is to go for a woolen and not a worsted yarn. I want it woolen because of the shorter hairs that are in this. And I want them to have enough twist to stay together. The finished yarn will shed lightly, which is another thing I want to happen, because when you have dogs that are special, they shed everywhere, and you're always reminded of them because you're constantly picking their little hairs off your clothes throughout the day. And when those animals are no longer part of your life, I think this type of yarn prep is a fun reminder of all the happy memories that they brought to you and your family. So the finished yarn and the item that's made from it will shed lightly, and those shorter Aussie fibers will come out every now and then and remind you that they're there. Anyway, Susan, I hope you liked the video. I'll be making more, and I'll make sure I tag you in them or send them to you in a message, whichever you'd prefer. And happy spinning!